On the Ottoman side, losses numbered 54 killed, of which 18 were German, and 74 wounded. Out of 176 guns, only 8 were heavy, and 4 had been disabled. de Robeck telegrammed the British naval commander, "Because of the mines and the batteries destroyed in the attack today, we have taken a bad result. Come to Bozca Ada tomorrow." The outcome, inability to keep the fleet in the strait, forced a decision to launch a land campaign on the Gallipoli Peninsula. A force of 75,000 troops was assembled, 30,000 Anzac, Australian and New Zealand, 27,000 British and 16,000 French. At the same time, Greece offered, and the Allies accepted, a 40,000-strong force. But Russia refused to allow Greeks to be granted territory in Istanbul if the operation succeeded, so the Greek forces were never used. Commander Hamilton aimed to secure the strait by first landing on the shores, then neutralizing the Ottoman shore batteries. 2 main landing zones were selected: Sedul Bahir at the southern tip of the peninsula, and a beach near Little Araburnu. More weight was given to Sedul Bahir because it was more accessible to naval fire support. The plan was for British and French troops to land at Sedul Bahir, the Anzac troops at Little Araburnu. On the Ottoman side, morale was high, owing to the successful naval defense. The new appointment of German General Otto Liman von Sanders to command the Dardanelles forces created worry for the Allies. He was given 4 weeks to prepare approximately 60,000 men in 6 divisions. Instead of balancing his defenses evenly, Liman Pasha, as he was known, placed 2 divisions each at Bolayır, the peninsula's southern end, and on the Anatolian side, leaving only 1 division for the British landing zones at Araburnu and Sedul Bahir. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Colonel Mustafa Kemal of the newly formed 19th Division was assigned to the Ichi Limani Sedul Bahir sector, but later moved to Begala. Thus 3/4 of the Ottoman defense was positioned where no landing would occur. A serious mistake that cost heavy losses on the first 2 days. In some cases, 1 Ottoman soldier was fighting 30 Allied soldiers. The Allied landing officially began on the 25th of April 1915 at 4:20. Under naval fire cover, Anzac troops boarded ferries and headed for shore, but strong currents dragged the boats off course, so they landed at the rocky Little Araburnu instead of the sandy Kabatape. A 20-man Turkish unit guarding Araburnu resisted, but the Anzacs gained a foothold. Meanwhile, Begala-based Mustafa Kemal's 19th Division reached J.K. Bayri during the night. At dawn, the sounds of heavy gunfire from Araburnu signaled the landing to Liman Pasha, who ordered his troops to move. By the end of 25th of April, the Anzac first landing wave reached inland, but the 57th Regiment from Begala counterattacked and inflicted heavy losses on the 10,000-strong Anzac force. They were forced to retreat. On the British side at Sedul Bahir, about 1,000 British soldiers landed with minimal opposition because the Ottoman commander had posted only 20 men to cover the twin bays. With little resistance, the British advanced rapidly. By 7:30, they had landed 2,000 more troops and reached Karakoğlan Hill by approximately 11 o'clock. During the night, Ottoman reinforcements arrived, and by 4 kilometers short of Alçatepe, the British advance stalled. While the British shifted focus to Ertuğrul Koyu, one of the most heavily defended locations, General Hamilton devised a risky landing plan via a coal transport ship packed with 2,000 British soldiers. The ship would beach 20 meters from shore, and the troops would disembark amid gunfire. Before the landing, the beach was bombarded for nearly 2 hours with 4,650 shells. When the ship grounded and troops jumped into the surf, machine gun fire from the Ottomans slaughtered them. None of the 2,000 reached shore, and the landing was aborted and postponed to evening. An Allied reconnaissance pilot reported that Ertuğrul Koyu was painted red with blood. Hamilton wrote in his diary, "The enemy apparently was dug in underground and at very great depth. The rifle fire from the land never ceased. All I could do was watch helplessly. Meanwhile, French warships bombarded Kumkale on the Anatolian side. By 10 o'clock, the French and Senegalese troops had taken the village. But Hamilton urgently needed reinforcements at Sedul Bahir, so he ordered the French to move there. Moreover, the Ottoman troops on the Asian side evacuated Kumkale to avoid casualties. Despite full Allied efforts, the campaign bogged down. The first Turkish counterattack came on 27th April at Anafarta near Araburnu. Heavy ship fire forced the attack to be withdrawn. A second attack on the night of 12th May at Sedulbahir failed for the same reason. The Turks prepared for a third attack during the night of the 3rd to the 4th of May. Though some Allied lines wavered, heavy naval bombardment repelled the attack, and the Turks returned to their trenches. Before the First World War began, the Bosphorus and the Dardanelles Straits were blocked by the Ottoman Empire, preventing Allied powers from supplying aid to Russia. The Russian Tsar Nicholas II asked Britain if it was possible to open a new front in the country's west to reduce the Ottoman strength on the Caucasus front. At that time, Britain's First Lord of the Admiralty, Winston Churchill, decided on an operation by sea and land at the Dardanelles. However, one of the naval commanders, Admiral John Fisher, submitted a report to Churchill in which he said that with a combined force, including Greece and Bulgaria, it would be easy to pass the Dardanelles and capture Istanbul. Churchill liked this plan. On 13th of January 1915, the British War Council met, and under Churchill's leadership, the opening of the Gallipoli front was unanimously decided. The Ottoman government, foreseeing possible attacks from both Istanbul and the Dardanelles, increased its preparations. On the Dardanelles, the Ottoman forces deployed 137 heavy guns, 24 howitzers, and 12 mortars along the Gallipoli Peninsula and the Anatolian shore to prevent bombardment from a distance. Also, the existing minefields in the strait were expanded. From 5 mine lines with 191 mines to 11 lines and a total of 344 mines. The Anglo-French preparations for the naval assault at the Dardanelles were completed only by early February. Reconnaissance flights by the British discovered the guns at Kumkale, Orhaniye, Sedul Bahir, and Ertuğrul, so the first attack was planned to target the fortifications at the entrance of the strait. Though the attack was scheduled for the 15th of February 1915, poor weather delayed it until the 19th of February at 10 o'clock. The bombardment continued until dark, but because the Allied ships were firing from open sea, the Ottoman army on land could not respond. At 16:45, when 2 of the Allied ships closed to shore, they were twice fired on, but without effect. After the first day, the result disappointed the Allies. 139 shells had been fired, but caused little damage because the ships kept moving. The plan required the ships to move closer to shore and directly engage the land batteries. However, heavy weather from the night of 19th February until 24th February prevented this, so the revised plan went into effect from 25th of February. At around 10 o'clock, the battleships Irresistible, Queen Elizabeth, and Agamemnon anchored and began bombarding Orhaniye, Sedul Bahir, Ertuğrul, and Kumkale. At approximately 1700 hours, believing the forts destroyed and anticipating worsening weather, Admiral Sackville-Carden ordered a ceasefire. No further attacks were launched until 28th February due to weather. British minesweeper vessels, despite storms and currents, advanced 6 miles into the strait and cleared mines near Çanakkale. On the 1st of March 1915, Allied ships tried to enter the cleared zone, but the Ottoman guns and howitzers forced them to withdraw. In a report to Churchill, Admiral Carden argued that a naval operation alone would not suffice. Only a landing from the land side to destroy the Ottoman guns would prevent heavy losses. Churchill accepted possible ship and personnel losses in order to capture the Dardanelles, believing that taking the strait would decisively affect the war. He instructed that the operation continue with suitable weather. On 12th March, the British government appointed General Ian Hamilton as commander of the British Overseas Expeditionary Force. Churchill instructed Admiral Carden to meet him as soon as Hamilton reached Mondros and begin the advance, but Carden insisted that the heavy gun batteries on the Gallipoli Hills must be destroyed by a land operation before any naval advance. On the 16th of March 1915, the British government dismissed Admiral Carden and replaced him with Admiral John de Robeck, who confidently said, "I'll handle this without difficulty." After the appointment, the main assault date was set for the 18th of March. At 11:30 on the 18th of March, the Anglo-French fleet of 16 ships, led by HMS Queen Elizabeth, began the attack. The fleet stayed out of range of the heavy batteries, bombarding the forts at Sanek and Kefi's headlands. Smoke rose from the forts, and the shore batteries from both sides of the strait began firing. At 12 o'clock, 6 British battleships moved in to strike the batteries. The Ottoman forts could not respond effectively. By 1345, the Naval Command believed the shore battery fire had largely ceased. For the Allies, the situation looked good. No major ship damage so far, and if they could cross the strait, they could capture Istanbul. Suddenly, however, the Dardanelles mines began to claim ships. The French battleship Bouvet hit a mine and exploded. The British battleships Inflexible and Irresistible suffered the same fate. Then HMS Ocean sank after striking a mine. At 1745, the attack ended. The Allies had lost 3 battleships. 2 others were heavily damaged. Casualties numbered around 1,000, including wounded. At this time, the British destroyer HMS Goliath was sunk by Ottoman torpedo boat Muavenet Emilie on the night of 12th to 13th May. In light of successive failures, Churchill resigned as First Lord of the Admiralty. Because the Allies could not progress at Sedul Bahir and Araburnu, General Hamilton decided to open a third front from Suvla to Anafarta, capture Conch-Bayoru and Cocachimentepe, and from there advance to the Dardanelles. On the night of the 6th to 7th of August, using the cover of darkness, Allied forces landed north of Araburnu at Suvla Bay and advanced rapidly towards Anafarta. The Ottoman commander at Anafarta, Colonel Fevzi Bey, claimed his troops were too tired to counterattack. He was dismissed and replaced by Mustafa Kemal. Early on 9th August, Mustafa Kemal launched a counterattack from both sides of Azmak Derki and succeeded in capturing the strategic heights of Cocachimentepe. On 21st August, the Allies counterattacked but failed at the Battle of Sari Bair, and the campaign degenerated into trench warfare that lasted for the rest of the war. Imperial War Museums +3 Wikipedia, +3 History Channel Italia +3. In December 1915, Allied casualty figures began being displayed in newspapers in Britain and France. The failed assault on the Dardanelles deeply impacted Allied morale. Hopes of capturing Istanbul were dashed. Even though Hamilton pressed the British government for reinforcements, no more troops were sent. In fact, 2 Allied divisions were pulled from Gallipoli and sent to the Western Front. General Higash replaced Hamilton with General Charles Munro. British War Secretary Lord Kitchener personally visited the front and recognized the Turkish defense was unbreachable. In January 1916, he ordered the evacuation of the Gallipoli trenches and shoreline. History Channel Italia +2. Anzac Portal +2. The outcomes of the Dardanelles Gallipoli campaign were: the Allied advance on Istanbul failed. The Ottoman army regained the prestige it had lost in the Balkan Wars. Mustafa Kemal gained his place in world military history. The First World War was prolonged by 2 years. And because the Allies couldn't relieve Russia, the Russian Revolution followed later. According to casualty figures, Britain suffered 31,389 dead, 9,780 missing, 78,748 wounded. France lost 9,000 dead and 18,000 wounded. Australia had 7,594 dead and 18,500 wounded. New Zealand 3,431 dead and 4,140 wounded. The Ottoman casualties were reported as 77,643 dead and 97,000 wounded. Total killed, missing, and captured is estimated at around 100,000. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel and hit like. If you'd like a video about another war or event, write it in the comments. Enjoy.